Hi, welcome to Swishing Mindsets. This is Anuradha, and today I'm speaking to Jerry Pinto on his book Murder in Mahim, which has just been made into a series playing on Geo Cinema. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Anuradha. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be speaking to you again. So
Mm.
you may not remember, but yeah, I've spoken to you for your last children's book.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do remember.
Oh, okay, great. That's great. So I just finished your book and I watched the series as well. And obviously, like all readers, you always prefer the book. Yeah, and
Yeah.
although the series, what I was happy to see that they've stuck to large parts of the book. It's not like they've just used it as a base and they've gone completely on the other trajectory. So it was interesting, but there were so first of all, what is the book born out of? I want to know because this is before 377. Homosexual sex was basically decriminalized. So you wrote it then. So was it
Yeah.
about anger or what was it?
I think it was about anger. There was that wonderful Delhi High Court, uh, you know, judgment that came out, and that seemed so well argued and well written. It took into account a whole host of factors: biological, psychological, social, political. It looked at the world's opinions on sex against the order of nature, which is what the actual law said, 377, which meant that if you didn't have sex in the missionary position in order to have a child, you were in contravention of the law. And that just sounded to me really stupid. Beyond stupid, it sounded to me not even practical, because a good law should not just be a law that helps maintain the order of society, but it should be a law that can be enforced. So if you say, for instance, tomorrow that you will pass a law forbidding people to have evil thoughts, that's a stupid law because you'll never be able to enforce it. What you can do is a law that says once you have an evil thought, you're fine with having the evil thought. You're fine with talking about it to your friends. But once you put it into the public space, then we can have something to say about it. That's a practicable law. So I thought this idea of having this 377 was not just a stupid, antiquated law, but it was not even a practicable law. So I didn't know why the Supreme Court had to read it down, and was just completely stupid. One of the worst decisions that I have read. It was a decision based on all kinds of like factitious arguments. And so I got very angry and I decided I was going to write something about it. I knew I wanted to write something about it, but I didn't know what. And I felt that if I decided to do an argument, why this section is really bad, or why homosexuality needs to be decriminalized, or whatever, the only people who would read it were the converted, the people who already agree with that statement or with that place, that position. And the other people who would read it were the people on the extreme end of the argument who would want to tear it apart. And so I didn't want to waste my time with doing a tract. What I wanted to do was smuggle this message into a book, and I thought a murder mystery is a very good place to do it because everyone likes a murder mystery. Right wingers like murder mysteries, left liberals like murder mysteries. Yeah, I'm sure, Christian priests like murder mysteries. So we'd all read it. In that sense, I hope to make some change. So that's why I wrote it as a murder mystery.
Yeah. And I remember I was just listening to an interview where you said as a child, when you were angry with your parents, you wrote down stuff and then you ate it up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I am glad you didn't eat this one up. So,
Yeah. That
we
was
got to
because
read it.
things that I wrote about were often about my parents. And I was often, a child's world is a small world. It's a world where the parents can be very large, and they loom large over your horizon.
Yeah.
World is a little larger now. So eating things up is not quite as frequent.
Yeah. And we would have got to read this then. Yeah. So
Thank
I
you.
love the book and the murder mystery as such because some what happens in murder mysteries is that you try to guess the killer, right? Even
Yeah,
in yeah,
yeah.
so that's
That's a
kind
whole
of fun, huh? And in the end, then you realize I don't want to give away too much, whether there's just one killer or there's another killer or whatever, you know. But the main thing which I liked was this pairing of Jende and Peter Fernandes. So I believe I was just looking it up. I didn't know that, you know, apparently they appear in another Mumbai Noir story that you'd written.
Yeah, long
Uh-huh.
ago. Altaf
Okay.
Tayarwala, the author of No God in Sight, and who's also a friend, wrote an email that he was putting together this book called Mumbai Noir for an American publisher. And he said, would I care to contribute? And I thought, why not? It sounded like fun. And so I wrote, and at that time I was going to a small gym across the road from where I live. And I was watching the way people interacted at the gym. It's something that you do all the time. You just watch everybody all the time. It's kind of almost a problem with being a writer. You can't turn it off. Also, you're constantly absorbing, the little details of how the young, uh, gym trainers will respond to older women, to young women who are of the same age or just a little older than them, to older men. They all have very different response patterns. And I thought maybe there would be something here that I could work out, because you know that gym is a very strange intersection of desire and reality. Because the desire is that the mirrors in the gym should reflect a body that is beautiful. You know, everyone who has a certain idea of what their body can look like with a little effort. And then there is the reality of what the mirrors are actually telling you, what the weighing scale is actually telling you. So it's that place, it's a liminal space where desire meets reality. And you know, it is also the space where the body is foregrounded in a way that it is not foregrounded in the office. In the office, your mind comes into play. Your body is not supposed to be part of the deal. You're not, we no longer comment on each other's clothes, or we do not say things about each other's physicality, because these have been protected by, you're no longer allowed to do that because they might constitute harassment, or they might constitute inappropriate behavior. So in a gym, however, you are actually saying that this is my body and this is my body in motion. And so I thought it could work as a setting for this for a short story. And that's how that first short story that features Jende and Peter happened.
Okay. No, it's lovely to see the friendship, and in the series they've turned it into, you know, they were estranged for a bit and then they come back together. So I was just kept waiting, and of course the actors are, the Ashutosh Rana and Vijay Raaz, who I love. So they're such great actors. So it's good to see them, you know, with the scenes together.
Hmm.
Um, but in your
Yeah,
book, straight up, they're friends, you know, right from the beginning, they're friends. And, you
yeah,
know, Jende is always calling him that, listen, come here. And Peter is a retired journalist. So he has the time to go and help his
yeah,
friend out. And like a
yeah.
reporter, he gets completely into the story. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And I think also what really was significant here was that there's a sense of being implicated, no? Because
Yeah.
it often worries me sometimes how easily and smoothly in crime fiction people talk about how middle class people go off to investigate crime fiction. Agatha Christie is a good example. Like, I mean, it's just as if something happens in the area and everybody goes to find out. Actually, death and murder are very frightening things. They're difficult things. They're difficult subjects in reality. When they come close to the family, they can actually be very painful and disruptive. So I think when Peter actually goes to investigate this murder, it's because his son is involved, and now he's acting out another set of roles, which is that of a protective father, and the protective father is worried about his son. In earlier days when we used to talk about LGBTQI issues in class and in college and whatnot, people would, I would think that the test would be, would you welcome having a LGBTQIA child? Would it be okay? And most parents would say something to be like, no, no, I would be fine. I'd be fine with it, but I'd just be worried because it would get hurt. My child would get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would think the child is going to get hurt anyway. You know? I mean, it's not as if heterosexual people or cisgender people or heteronormative people don't get hurt or are protected. But I suspect what they meant was that there'll be not just the hurt of betrayal and not just the hurt of the other things that happen to people who are heterosexual. But there's also the hiding, there's also the concealment, there's also the anxiety, there's also the social disprivileging, the exclusions, the jokes, all that would also happen. So that's a little of what I tried to bring into Peter and Minnie's response to the fact
Yeah,
that
it's
Sunil might
beautiful when Peter says that he's going to be alone in the book as well in the series, and Millie says no, he will have us. He will not be
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
For a lot of us, our birth families are mixed blessings in a way. So I always say your family gives you roots and it gives you wings. So it gives you wings and it says fly away, and then it gives you roots and it tries to prevent you from flying. That keeps you, so the idea is it keeps you grounded but gives you a place to leave also from. But you want to leave with the assurance that you will be welcomed back when you need to come back. And that, I think, is what often so many of for instance, of the transgender communities' narratives. There's such a terrible time of being excluded, thrust out of the home, refused entry when they come, refused participation in a wedding. All these are things that happen and have been documented. And yet the same family will be very happy to take their money when the money is needed. So I think we need to examine this great myth of the wonderful Indian family. We need to deconstruct it a little and see that that there is a lot of warmth and there is a lot of love, but there's also some healing that is needed in the family as well, and in the way
it's
structures of
brutal.
the family.
There's a lot of brutality almost. Yeah.
Yeah, often. Yeah. And there is almost a refusal to try and understand difference. That, a child who wants to say, and it can be something as simple as a child who wants to be a dancer, right? I always say, people say to their children, whatever you want to be, you can be whatever you want to be. The child says, I want to be a dancer. Then they say, no, not that. Because, these are not safe professions.
Yeah, we worried for you. That's what it is.
Yeah, they worried for you, that you'll be exploited, that, it's a profession with a short period of life, and where will you actually perform? What will you perform? All that. You're not, and if you want to be a classical dancer, then they'll say yes, but that'll be a hobby. But you want to be like a modern dancer, jazz dancer, not so much.
But I think it's more of our generation, this generation is very focused on money. They're quite clear that they have to earn the money. I think our generation was more idealistic in that sense. So maybe that's a good thing. But
I am 57, so I grew up with very limited choices in the world, right? I mean, we had two kinds of chocolate. We had Cadbury and we had Amul. That was all. And Dr. Writers, if you counted that as chocolate at all, it was another kind. But it was Amul or Cadbury. That was all you had. And you had flying machine jeans. So in that sense, what did you need money for?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. A few Archie comics or something,
And there was circulating libraries from which you could get
exactly.
supply of Archie comics. And, and if you formed a little cabal with 4 or 5 of your friends, then what you would do is borrow the Archie comics, and you would get 5 Archie comics for the price of 1. Because all of you would read each other's comics and then return.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, lovely times. But you've treated everything with such sensitivity, I mean, I know the word is cliched, but you have actually done that. Like even, the boy that is invited home for lunch, Unit, it is so lovely, and they've shown it in the series as well, and they've handled it pretty well. Yeah. So, it's very sweet. In the series, they've shown that, he wears a fresh shirt and things like that.
This was actually happened in my Yeah. This actually happened in my family because we generally eat off China, being a Roman Catholic family, we eat off China. And then one day, a Dalit friend of mine was coming to eat, coming for dinner, and he told me once that it was very offensive that when he went to other upper caste people's houses, that he would see them eating in thalis and gunmetal or bell metal thalis, or gunmetal bell metal thalis, or in stainless steel thalis, but they gave him food in a china plate. And so then we went through this like nightmare of whether we should. Like, I mean, surely he would be able to see that we are all eating in China, but we don't have matched sets, right? Like my family is not the kind that has like 12 Noriko or whatever, Noritake plates. We have like
Yeah.
two plates. One plate came out of good earth, one plate was bought long ago, that sort of thing. So we thought maybe he'd think we're giving him a separate plate or something. So we actually went across to the neighbors. We chose a non-vegetarian neighbor.
Yeah.
Just in case the vegetarian neighbor would say, no, no, I'm not giving you
And
my
all that
plate.
is there in the book, yeah.
Yeah. And we actually just like, everybody ate in thalis looking, feeling slightly odd. But I think this is the small and perfectly allowable taxes that we pay on the wonderful multicultural society that we have, right? So if you look at the old tales that we used to remember, the fox and the crane,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the fox and the crane, the fox is coming to the crane's house, and the
And yeah.
crane is, has put things in tall things so the fox can't eat,
Yeah, yeah.
I want to write a story in which the crane invites the fox over and serves in those long things which the crane can eat in, but the fox can't eat in. And the next day, the fox invites the crane over and finds the crane is in the market buying a thali, because the crane wants to say, I know I made a mistake that last time, but next time you come over, the food will be served in this flat plate for you. And we can do this for each other. Like, I mean, if a vegetarian friend comes over, we will have a vegetarian meal, and it will not be a cost. It won't be something that we will be so terribly worried about. We'll feel quite morally superior, and we'll feel quite healthy also that we're eating a nice vegetarian meal. It's not an issue, because we do this for each other because we want each other to. I mean, I don't want you to come to my house and feel uncomfortable, nor do you want me to come to your house and feel uncomfortable. So we do this for each other quite consciously and willingly, I think, and happily, because it's really lovely to go to another person's house
Yeah, and they've
and
thought
eat
about
dhokla
it.
if they're Gujarati. Because it's an important way of saying, yes, it can get, I mean, if we were all the same kind of person, then it would be easier, because we'd all just go to each other's house and we'd all be eating the same things in the same way. But thank heavens we are not like that. And thank heavens we have to make these small adjustments, because the bigger payoff, the much greater payoff, is the way our lives become so various and so rich and so wonderfully different.
Yeah, very true. And that's reflected, because they're just trying to make this guy unit comfortable. Because he
Yeah.
says that, yeah, like, and then they have a compromise where she says that, listen, the glass cannot be steel. I don't have that many steel glasses. I'll have to wash them and all that. So the intention is very pure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of it, like even in the series, he says that, oh, he's a nice boy. And,
Yeah.
when you see him getting into trouble, even in the book, you feel
Yeah.
sorry for him. Like, what a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that most people eventually, when they have actually met the person that they have some notions about, they discover that they are quite quite ordinary. Like they're like us. So they're just the same. Oh, that's the way they are. We also do that. Oh, in yours you do that, but there is something that is common to all of us. And if we often approach each other with lenses. Those lenses are sometimes subconscious. We don't even know we have the lens, but it's just been implanted there by things people have said in passing, by even comments like they do like that and they are like that, or jokes even, which are can often be ways in which we learn to misunderstand each other. Okay, so when actually eventually you have spent some time with a person, you discover that you have much more in common with them than you would think.
Yeah, very true. And I
Yeah,
think that's what is happening with Peter as he's meeting all these people.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's Peter's arc also is important. I think, because he's he has lived a fairly exposed life because he's been a journalist, and journalists do meet a range of people. I
yeah,
always tell my students at the Sophia Polytechnic, social communications media class that I teach, I say journalism is the most fun you can have and get paid. You won't get paid terribly much, but you still get paid. But it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on and get paid, right? Because every day you walk into the office and you may meet the same bunch of people, but you are required to go out and meet new people every day. And there are people generally at an inflection point in their lives. There are people who have either, had a success or done something or had something happen to them. So they are in some ways much more exposed, and they're willing to talk to you at great length and in great depth and in detail about their lives. So you'll come back knowing much more about them than you'll ever use when you're writing. But it'll be just, it's there in your head. So the job is a job of deep richness. So Peter has presumably met a range of people, but he's not actually investigated the gay sub-communities
yeah.
or the gay culture of his city. And it's like he's now being taken, into this space. And he has a guide, Leslie,
Leslie, yeah, yeah.
and
Leslie is interesting.
yeah, yeah,
And Leslie, what I like is he takes him into gay Bombay. And there was one line which I liked, where he says that, as a young boy, when I think he was 12 or 8 or something, he realized that he was attracted to men and started looking at magazines because he said, where else am I going to see these bodies? And Peter asks, yourself? You know, you can see he said, no, of course not. And that was such a, I love that comment because that's what one would imagine. What is the
yeah,
mystery? It's the same
yeah,
gender. Yeah.
yeah. But I suppose, the visual is so important and so rich, no? And in that sense,
Yeah.
you think about it, like eventually the body is the same thing, no? But every body is different. And some bodies have much more, I don't know, attractiveness than other bodies. And
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
bodies have a certain pull, certain deep pull that makes us want to say, for instance, tomorrow, if you hear that a certain film star is appearing in what they used to call adult or mature picture or whatever. There's a certain uh, a different thrill about that. So Peter, I think, is being a little disingenuous there, where he says you can look at
I
a
like the
woman
way
body.
you slip that in there, because it's a
Yeah,
question that one may ask.
yeah,
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 very interesting. And also, you've taken him on a tour of gay Bombay, so he's obviously a Mumbaiker. He's lived there. He hasn't seen this life. It's just escaped him. It's just there, but he's never
yeah.
seen it. So tell me, who was your guide, or how did you unearth this entire thing in this tour? Or did you have to do any homework to put it into the book?
See, at the end of the day, it is now all available. Like all research, you can start and you can end with Google, but that's the worst possible kind of research to
Yeah.
do. Because my belief is research is other people. That's what I tell my students at Sophia Polytechnic, SCM, all the time. I say research is other people. Anything you want to know, you just have to talk to people. And once you talk, and because we live in India, and again, this is a gift that India has. Okay, we are willing to share our stories in a way that most people in the rest of the world won't be willing to share. You can ask what are when I went abroad for the first time, I must have been about 30 or something like that. As a Chevening scholar, British Council, you should try and apply for one or other. They're good scholarships. Anyway, I was constantly being told by British people, that's a little personal. And I kept thinking, oh, really? Okay, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. You don't have to reply if you don't want to reply. But in India, there were questions that you would never think twice to ask. How many children do you have? Where are you working now? Where were you working before that? Seemed like normal, natural questions. Just hang out, ask people, talk to people, and find. I have friends who are gay friends. I asked them for contacts. I went and met people, and that's how I did my research.
Yeah, you're right. Because in India, if we don't ask these questions, it's rude. That you have no
Yeah,
curiosity about the
yeah,
other person.
yeah,
It's like what you
absolutely.
spend half an hour with that person and you don't even know this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like that. Is that really happening? I'm just trying to frame the questions that, with proxy, unit, all these guys, they're there in the loose. I mean, of course, I've done a lot of stories on the community when I also first started my career. And yes, I mean, I remember them telling me that's how they met partners, right? A lot of these people, they did meet partners
The
like that.
oddest things is that
Also because they were
a lot
scared
of
of
the
getting caught by the cops because it was a criminal act, right?
yeah,
At that
yeah,
time. So it was very scary. It was a
yeah.
huge risk for them.
So there are many, I think, there are many layers in this whole thing about gay sexuality. The first is that there is just pure love and attraction. Right? So that's what presumably Leslie felt for his Gujarati accountant boyfriend or
Yeah.
whatever. That's just like love and affection. But there's also another kind of uh, another layer, which is commercial attraction, which is where you put out for somebody who's paying you. And then I've discovered that there were very often relationships which had become friendships. Like, I mean, it started as an older man paying a younger man for sexual favors, and then kind of helping the younger man with his family, helping him with his education, helping him get married. Sometimes,
Yeah.
for the marriage sometimes, and old associations that lasted a decade. So it seems as if we have a gift for love. We also have a terrible gift for hate, it seems right now. But we also have a gift for love. And when that love is not named and labeled and shamed, it can be a very nourishing thing for everybody. So, I met this young man who had because I needed to know about the honey traps and I needed to know about the commercial aspect of gay life as well. So I met this young man who was kind of like uh, a bit of the model for proxy, and and he was telling me about his giraiks and how his giraiks, like, one has been with him for 6 years now, and he could take me and introduce me to that giraik and whatnot. And then he called the giraik, and they had a conversation, it seemed very friendly. And then he asked whether this writer who's working, and that man got little, I think, spooked. So he said, "No, I'm not. I don't want you to come to bring him, etc., etc." And then, he apologized, said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know he'd be like that." But I said, "It's not a problem." But I was interested in the fact that there was, this. We have a way of looking at commercial sexual relationships as if they are only mediated by money, and they're not. They're also mediated by just human contact and can be something that is satisfying in other ways too.
What Unit says, they say they don't have the luxury of choice. When, Peter asks him, I think in the book or in the series that, so you're gay or something they insinuate. In the book, it's more insinuated. And he says that, and he says that he wants to go to Dubai, he wants to get married, he wants to do all
Mhm.
that. So for them, it's you just do what you do to make money and to survive. And he
Yeah,
says the city itself, Mumbai itself, is like a trap. It's like a
yeah,
jail.
yeah.
So
I
it's,
think,
yeah,
for many people, see, if you think about it, what do you have? Like, what do you have to put into play? Because the whole of Bombay is like a large open air casino, right? And we are all putting our stakes on something, right? So you'll have a family where everything is being put on one young man's entry into IIT, right?
yeah.
Like, they will have borrowed money to send him to Kota, they will have borrowed money for coaching, they'll have borrowed money for everything, and they'll be heavily in debt, but everything's based on that young man going to Kota, into IIT. And this is why the problems begin, because, like, when that young man discovers that he's not good enough for IIT, okay, uh, he knows what his family has gone through. He's been hearing the conversations. He's seen his mother pawn her jewelry, whatever. Now, that's because he has intelligence and that family has some commitment to his education. Now, what if you don't have the kind of intelligence that can be accommodated by the educational system, which is basically abstract reasoning and abstract thinking? What if your intelligence is a physical intelligence? It's an intelligence of the body, an intelligence of movement, right? How do you monetize that? So for many of us, for you, Anuradha, for me, we've played the abstract reasoning game so well that we are now being paid for this, right? And we're making a living. And luckily for us, selling the products of your mind is acceptable to middle class society. Selling the products of your body is not acceptable to middle class society by our morality. It's just our morality that says that, right? And I always think when I think about this, I think, what is more me? Is my body more me or is my mind more me? And the answer always is my mind is more me than my body, right? And yet I can put the products of my mind out without shame, but I can't put the product of my body out. If tomorrow, Vicky Donor, it's a great film and very funny and sweet, but there was a kind of embarrassment about this young man selling his sperm, or the idea that young Indian women who are abroad and need, sometimes because they're studying and they've run out of money, sell their ova. That produced a certain frisson of discomfort. People were not very comfortable with this idea because those, uh, you know, Indian American couples who are childless in America wanted Indian American girl eggs, and they were willing to pay for them well. Right? Suddenly, this commodification of the body worries us because in our middle class way of thinking, this is not what the body is supposed to do. The body is a receptacle for the mind. The mind can be monetized, but the body cannot. Now, these are people who have discovered that the body is what they can monetize, right? And because we have a morality issue with that, we call them prostitutes. We call them randi. We call them, we are insulting.
Yeah,
We are
insulting.
offensive to that kind of sex work. And therefore, that becomes a kind of, then they begin to seek way, because you can't live with routine continually without absorbing some of it yourself, without absorbing some of it into your self image. And that's what constantly is at play here. How is the self being presented? No?
Yeah. And in their case, like unit proxies, they're just playing the best card that they've been dealt, whatever
Yeah, yeah.
works. Yeah, because
And the
definition.
best card that they know is a short-lived card, because
Yeah,
around them they can see older men who are no longer acceptable, who are
yeah.
no longer able to kind of like make money in the way that they can make money.
Hmm.
So you know that this is a short period of time during which they can kind of, they've got to harvest, make as much as they can, and they're all looking for ways in which to get out of it. But
Yeah,
but not because I think we have a very fluid attitude towards sexuality. Um, so the word samalangik, for instance, in Hindi, is
hmm.
a very upper class word.
Okay.
People don't use it very much in the lower this thing. They would say things like good, or they would
Hmm.
say, gay is
Yeah,
a much more commonly used word in Marathi circles than samalangik, which is kind
yeah.
of
It's very long. Yeah,
Sanskritic, and
yeah.
it's kind of like almost I don't know, scientific in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I was reading an interview where you've said this, I love this line. You said that we are a parade of possibilities.
Aren't we at all?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
you said that we are not what we are. We only inhabit a possibility for a short period of time. And often we are not even in control of how long we'll be there. I think this was an interview for The Wire you did.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It just occurs to me so much, like all the time when uh, you're standing in front of a class as a teacher, right? And there you are in a position of power, right? but you're trying to destabilize that power because long ago you have been uh, in situations where teachers have been fascists or they have been authoritarian. You have not liked it, but you still know you have power, right? You're a teacher in India, you have power.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but you're destabilizing it. Now, within half an hour, you've left that power situation and you walk back into the office, into, say, a media office, where your editor is in the position of power. And now you are not in a position of power. But he tells you, go out and interview so and so person, and you arrive there, and again, you're in a position of power because you are going to be telling that person's life story, and that person is also has certain power there because they can refuse to tell you or refuse to talk to you or refuse to talk to you as much as openly as you would like. So it's kind of like we're constantly negotiating with who we are and how we are going to be who we are, and any attempt at just saying, um, I am powerful, I am uh, in charge, is going to be disproved in the next 10 minutes. We live in a situation where we must depend on a whole host and range of people doing things for us. I think COVID pointed that out to us really quite starkly. That dependency, you'll often have rich people talking to you about how the maid hasn't come today or the cook hasn't come today, and my life is just completely out of order. And you understand that their life isn't completely out of order. It's just that they're slightly discomfited. But what they are saying and what everybody knows is that we cannot live in charge. We are not in charge. We are only given a little moment often when we feel that things are going our way. Okay, but it's not quite. And I think the richer you are and the more privileged you are, the more you feel that way. And therefore, the more horrible it is when things don't go completely away. Which is why that bejeweled lady shouting, "You don't know who I am," because of some small thing that happened. It's just because she's got a princess and pea situation, so her pea turned up just now, and it's really
Yeah,
really troubling.
yeah. I think it's just that illusion of being in charge. That's what it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
yeah, we're all deluded.
Yeah.
So Jerry, just curious, is there any one person in the book where, it's you trying to find answers, or are you in the book somewhere among
Well,
the
Jotin
characters?
Perry is one, you
Jotin
know,
Perry. Okay.
that's Jerry Pinto all muddled up the letters.
Okay,
Okay.
I wouldn't have imagined.
No, no. The reason why I put him in is because I also felt, there's often a time when I have been a poser like everybody else. Jotin Perry is a bit of a poser.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why one is a poser in the early parts of one career, especially, is because you can't trust the outlines of the self. So you pretend that there is another self that you're inhabiting because you feel that that might be less vulnerable to hurt. So I try to remind myself now when I meet young posers that they're just flailing, just trying to find a way of dealing with society and with this complicated reality that they're facing, and that you did this stuff once in a while. So I put Jotin Perry in just to remind myself that there were times when I could be a complete jackass.
Yeah, and Perry, Jerry, okay, the J and the P as well.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fun. Yeah. Any character that you feel more towards? Like for me, it was Unit, or maybe for everybody, it would be Unit. I don't
yeah.
know.
I
Hmm.
think, like, I mean, for instance, I think Millie is important to me also because in
Yeah.
some ways, um, most of the families we read about are husbands and wives in some kind of mannequin struggle against each other. Because that's where like drama and conflict happens. But most of the people we meet are people who have settled into a comfortable pattern of coexistence. Okay. It's not the best possible pattern of coexistence, but it is something that provides them with enough warmth to get them by. And I enjoyed writing Peter and Millie because I thought, you know, there's a lot of middle class families which are just okay. They manage somehow. They
Yeah,
lump
it's
along.
working for them. Huh.
Yeah,
It works,
exactly. So
yeah.
I think that
Mm.
was why that was what I enjoyed writing Peter and Millie. I enjoyed writing an honest cop also, Shiva,
Yeah,
because I think I've met a couple of them, especially during the Bombay riots. Um, there were in Mahim where I live. It was often it would be one policeman who both communities could trust and could talk to. That would mean the difference between like the riot continuing or and more lives being lost or things quietening down. So I wanted to pay homage to those men also.
yeah, the honest cop bit was nice, especially with Jende, because right from the outset, I mean, there's no question that he's honest. He will see the case to the right to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was nice. And it's Vijay Raaz. Do you have anything to say about the casting? Vijay Raaz
I
and
loved the casting. I thought all three of the major characters were cast perfectly. Divya Jagdale is of course like a very fine actress. And Vijay Raaz and Ashutosh Rana can't get better than that. Huh? I mean,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think
It's
it
a
was such
joy.
absolutely. And the first time I saw Ashutosh Rana, I thought, my gosh, Rana, I thought, my gosh, he looks like a Goan Catholic middle class reporter with those funny T-shirts,
Yeah.
curly hair, whatnot. And Vijay Raaz has that smolder, which is important. And I think all three of them can convey that they have an interior life happening.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Mm.
that that was really important to me. I was very glad that that happened.
Yeah, they've added anger issues to Jende,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I think that works as well.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, the way that ended, and knowing that these two have partners in crime, they've appeared earlier as well. Do you think we can have another?
When I sent the book off to Mary Mount, who was then at Penguin in the UK, they were my publishers on M in the Big Home. She wrote back and said she enjoyed the book tremendously and that she would take it on as long as I was willing to write 3 or 4 more uh, Peter-Jende books. Okay. And I thought about that because it's tempting to have a British
Yeah,
publication.
whole series. Yeah.
But then I thought, no, because what I've discovered is that almost all the writers of detective fiction begin to resent the characters that they've created. Like Arthur Conan Doyle resented Sherlock Holmes and killed him off even once. Agatha Christie, I think, resented Hercule Poirot deeply at some point. So I think she invented Ariadne Oliver and the Finnish detective to represent that feeling. My personal thing was I've always wanted to get up in the morning and be free to write what I want to write, not what someone else has told me to write. And this felt like an imposition, like someone saying, okay, chalo, write another book like this. And I don't want to be told what to write. I'd rather write what I want to write. So I just wrote back and I said, no time. So are there more Shiva and Jende books coming? Possibly, very possibly. If a theme, I at one point I was really tempted to write one on acid attacks because that's really also something that
Oh, it's gruesome.
enrages,
Yeah. Mhm.
really enrages me because I think it is just such bad socialization that men can't seem to take no for an answer and just walk away politely and calmly and nurse your grieving heart somewhere else. But you do this horrible thing and ruin someone's life. It's just beyond belief. But I couldn't find a way into that. But you know, I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm saying that right now there are other things that are interesting me and that I'm happy to work on. And one day I may come back.
Yeah, if you wake up in the morning and you feel like doing it.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not
Yeah.
that it's a contract to do it and I have to do 4 more and all that. It's like, oof,
Yeah.
no.
Thank you so much, Jerry,
Thank you
for
so
this.
much, Anuradha. It was a great conversation and you really did your homework well. Thanks a lot.
I still
Okay,
feel like there must be so much more to talk about, but some other time then.
definitely. Okay, looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.